Okay, I was thinking I was going to get this in real quick, and I was thinking about some things about a generator. I'm looking at another generator, but I was thinking about automatically, it's like the band Yes and Big Generator and the yellow uh, album cover, the CD, and the yellow Big Generator color. Anyway, it's kind of like thinking I talked previously earlier on my YouTube.com channel at Wade ASV Pretty PRIDDY in coordination with Wade ASV Pretty PRIDDY 192 on YouTube.com. Okay, but anyway, the thing with this is that I was talking previously about the color codes of like a Sprite, and I was just thinking about something about Texas City and Texas twice being 69. Twice is like 138. With 57 is like 195. Okay, but anyway, as far as like alphanumeric and linguistics go, okay, and I was thinking about a considerable amount about the color code of like Sprite and the pastel green. And I'm not sure what color it is green. It's real close and similar to the pastel green. It's a little bit maybe it's just the texture of the book cover itself of the jurisprudence with the black back, the book in the law library. And it's just kind of like thinking about the thing about the British Petroleum in Texas City that way. Texas City, Texas, okay? It's like automatically I was thinking about the Hurricane Carla and all the alphanumerics seem to be, like my thing about 140 and alphanumerics and attenuation and, electronic power being like 181 in Houston, Texas, and WIA International and selective service and all the alphanumerics and, the deal about, in my mind, the alphanumerics in the Houston, Texas area being predominantly in my thought of what the 100 Club would predominantly be alphanumerically involving, 64 and 36 seem to be the two. I wouldn't really call it a common denominator, although, those two with alphanumerics equating to 181 in Houston, Texas, electronic power and WIA International Selective Service seem to be like the two of like 100. Yet the quarter, and that's kind of like I was thinking about, the color coded Sprite and, and province, the pastel green of like world history and world class. That way, and I'd mentioned certain factors of like the color code of like the Sprite itself and the coordination between the two colors of province of world history world class and the book jurisprudence. My thing about the word annotated being 94, okay, and adoption and abortion or the Roe v. Wade thing, and just to say it real quick again, I've seen it both ways. The way it's spelled ROE, and what's that 1520? That's like 38, okay, and then I've seen it spelled ROWE, being 61, like news and miracle and all that, and phenomenally, I mean the thing about the Roe v. Wade is led to believe that it's like ultimately about an abortion, okay, but the thing with this is that abortion is like a 94. Okay, the word annotated predominantly, and that you'll see predominantly on like codes annotated. The thing with this is that really, and my thought how okay, my name is Wade, okay, and in any case, yeah, so like in any case, all the alphanumerics seem to be ultimately getting to what papermates seem to be ultimately involving alphanumerics and linguistics and a whole lot of degree more so terminology and definition where the words at sometimes, and something a little bit involving knowing when and where that is applicable or in circuit or sort of like legal and medical and geographics and communications and international financial management, international banking systems, and importing and exporting. I mean, all kinds of stuff that like really I look at and in that way, and color code and symbolic representation. And since I'm a drummer, okay, it's like the word symbol is like automatically an automatic identifier whenever something reminds me of a symbol. I mean Zilton is predominantly the thing, but there's like an experience of like whether or not if it's considered electronic consumer or like a fixture in real estate, or some thought of like some mechanics lien as a fixture in real estate, or what electronic consumption might only seem to be of my thought of a pasty symbol, and I'm not real sure about the pronunciation of that particular symbol. Pasty, pasty, maybe both, maybe and or maybe consideration. But anyway, as far as that goes, I was thinking about the British Petroleum, and something about Texas City, Texas, and Hurricane Carla, and all that stuff about the LA being like Los Angeles, and area code 213 and 323, and Los Angeles itself being 109, and something about the thing about the car being 22, and the FDIC and RCA, and all the alphanumerics of like FBI psychology and 22, and ultimately the thing about the as far as the information, how true it is, I'm really not sure. As far as the English thing about finding information about the Japanese alphabet, there's, according to the information, it's 22 alphabetical letters in the Japanese alphabet. Like I mentioned before, I mean, it looks more symbolic to me considering the thing, but it has ultimately led to the structure, okay, of quantum and where it's at right now. Okay, like was born, and if the word really needs to be something more amoeba uh, than born, birth, or birth year, being born, and it really seems to be really an issue of degree level. Really, even using the word born would only represent hey in the grade in the real world. To be is like yeah, the issue. But anyway, so I was kind of like thinking about that because ultimately in the code blue, the 6 point star and the absolute values, which is like the horizontal bars above and below the 6 point star of the Israeli flag, seem to be like where I'm kind of like really at, and being the issue of like receiving benefits of supplemental security and the acronym SSI or the ISS, and my thought of an international superstar, or international space station, or think about the exponential quotients as compared to the pi r squared, and those seem to be. It's not the only two, but it seems to be predominantly. I mean, the two that seem to be so symbolic and practical application of principle. Um, of integration and compatibility when alphanumerics and linguistics involved. It seems to be so much of that in many ways, predominantly just its description sometimes of practical application of principle, used in alphanumerics and linguistics in a phenomenally realistic way. But yeah, and ultimately it seems to be like even the golden arches, like I'd mentioned previously, but it seems to be like something about like a worldwide I don't know if I would even use the word soldier. I mean, based upon degree level, I mean, for real, whether it's like a non-degree, non-negotiable, non-transferable ionization would only be maybe an automatic borrower's terminology of like intellectual duration of like what having fair use is in international law as an access easement. Or maybe, the thought in a way that if it's ultimately getting to and I'd ask the question. As a matter of fact, I've even called. I haven't even received not really one response. I've sent emails and like to the White House, but it's ultimately getting to like really Washington D.C. If it's really going to be just the categorization of money, or likewise international banking systems of currency and circuit and electronic god and television in that way over the categorization of money. If Washington D.C. is going to ever like present anything maybe what's on television, if it's going to be like in the Houston Texas area, or of K television, or what W television radio is to really a PG-13 rating, and what that is to the US $1, what the 13 stars really is. But anyway, yeah, so it had gotten to the point of something in my mind of like pronunciation and like the two dots on the upper side of the either you, and I think Germany's one, but it's kind of like I'd mentioned before, like a schematic. This two-dimensional gives the impression on I-45, Interstate 45, Gulf Freeway, at FM 528, which is NASA Road 1, real close. What was then Clear Lake is still Clear Lake to anyone who really knows, but Houston annexed it, okay? Predominantly, NASA's predominantly, known as command control, at least in the Houston area, presented like even on world news. That way in the Houston area, national news that way, but NASA always referring to, you know, um, being in Clear Lake, Texas, finally annexed by Houston like years later. In any case, yeah. So like and all that seems to be pertinent to like the spirit of adoption. Okay, And even Roe v. Wade, I mean, it seems to be, I mean, it and space exploration, or like even color code of like Vernon State of Texas state statutes annotated, or what, caviar is beyond the front lines is beachfront, or, making it great, beyond the beachfront of like primate spawning. And the deal about being born, the word born itself, it seems to be like, really, if it's going to be something, beyond maritime law, and if it actually identifies maritime law in a way of like what an amoeba is, as compared to the thought of like amoeba, protozoa, and what is it, the protozoa, amoeba, protozoa, and it's like the asexual thing about the word for 137. It's like the thing about the rejuvenation in the way, although like rejuvenation as compared to osmosis, or the thought of like a um, predominantly in biology, involving the thought of like a microscopic participating factors of like the slide, and magnification that way. Ultimately, in alphanumerics, once again, it even gets to the thought of pi r squared, to what a variable would be in exponent position, um, of powers of multiplication, like exponential quotient, yet exponential, in like pi r squared, the placement is still, where an exponent is, but it's already identified really in pi r squared. And normally it's presented as a variable, yet it's in its place of an exponent, which is normally a variable in that way. And when it's identified, I mean, it's obviously not necessarily considered a variable that way, like pi r squared being like 2, what would be normally a variable as an exponent. Um, but anyway, in any case, yeah. So like anyway, so it seemed to be like getting to the thing about the, ultimately, the computation, and the thing of it is that where I'm at right now in SSI and supplemental security, in my mind, is kind of like there's obviously the thing of in my mind of the pi r squared, or even something about empire, and something about the exponential quotients, and what it is or is not, or, but in any case, yeah. So like I was thinking about that because thing of it is that as far as the yin yang, the two dots, HTTP colon double forward slash, it seems like the two interviews, and like with HTTP colon double forward slash, I'm not sure if it's only two programs or operating systems, but it's just like a circle with like a 90-degree right angle to the upper left side. And in the Houston area, it's like, the greater or less than sign, but it's representing the greater than, it being open as a 90 degree in direction would be greater. In the Houston area, like on the map, that would be automatically Highway 290. Well, there's something about the importing and exporting in the interview. That's like two interviews, and there's really three, but the third one is kind of like, I'm really trying to place it, but the first two, and when I look for it on the third, okay, when I really realized this, I was at the interview reading the information, and it's like a huge manufacturing that's involved with like importing and exporting, worldwide. And at the interview, the information involved with it, I mean, anyone that's like involved or been to church or have ever seen or known anyone that's got I don't know if I'd even call it a plaque, but it's a picture of the front lines of the beachfront with the two sets of footprints, okay? And the one that's really left, I've seen different versions of it, but the one that really it seems to be the real thing about the front lines of the beachfront is like just two sets of footprints being 4 feet, okay? And then all of a sudden, there's only like 2 feet, one set of footprints. And the question, Lord, where were you when I needed you most? And it's like it's quoted on the plaque stating that's what I was carrying, okay? And there's a generator win, okay? And where I'm at right now, what's really going on, with like the electrical system, and what the deal is. It's, I mean, you got to be kidding me. It's almost like biblical prophecy of like third and fourth generation, and um, some real issues involved. But anyway, yeah. So like it's kind of like it's kind of like thinking about something about the grayscale, measuring density of luminance, which is a set standard of grayscale, and the Houston Astros uniform. And I'll have to actually look at it and think about it a little bit more. But I mean, it's like when I really started thinking about the Highway 288 thing and being like the Nolan Ryan Express. I'd mentioned previously, that, and I was really thinking about Nostradamus and a 2,000 year new millennium pi r squared thing about the accuracy of 400 years of accuracy based upon the narration of Orson Welles, or Orson Welles being 152 and like international and a telepathic heart and quite a bit, ultimately getting to the escrow and the thing about the quarter and the operator, and ultimately zero and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, yeah, so like the narration by Orson Welles, okay, is the thing that seemed to be like automatically an issue about the alphanumeric's 152 and the word international, or what it is to, I mean, really, even the toilet, okay, or the high silver thing beyond the color code of the white toilet, and the stainless steel silver, like almost like printed circuit board color, the high silver thing, and the thing about the oldest computer mainframe, the Whopper, and ultimately getting to the Whoopa and the Israeli flag and code 10, and ultimately it's getting to the Diners Club. It seems to be the computation, what seems to be like the exiting Huntsville thing about the Golden Gates, and something really. I mean, if television and entertainment wasn't involved in a way, I mean, certain factors involving like a Stargate program, I'm almost for certain would be virtually impossible to remember without and other factors and all that stuff. But anyway, it's like this. So, and really, how true it is about if it's inside the Kremlin. Um, Although it seemed to be like the deal about front page news of the Houston Chronicle during the time of the Chevrolet Geo Prism and the Hyundai Excel, like the largest uh, shipment of like in the port of Houston. It's like world, national, and local news and front page of the Houston Chronicle. Likewise, during that time, the different by design, the E it's in quantum. It's a looking, but it's different by design, like a Star Furniture. Think about furniture and the commercial different by design. But ultimately, it gets to like the Japanese thing about the being 22 and 22 being RCA and FDIC and car, and all this stuff's going on. Thinking about all this information, and ultimately it's getting to like um, my thought of like the two major manufacturers of importing and exporting in the interview, and it seemed to be like the two, and now it seemed to be like ultimately the HTTP : because I haven't. It's just that I'm going on my memory, and I'm not real sure how many programs, or if it's just a different type of operating or a date when change took place. But there is like a circle with like a 9 degree to the upper left, geographically, that would automatically be, like a now an Austin Powers Blue Bonnet Imperial Eagle thing about the I can't believe it's butter, or the colon and the HTTP : or what that is to the yin yang, or the two dots, or the Japanese yen, or even the wind. If not now, then when. It's kind of like innovation leading the way and re-entering the atmosphere at the speed of light thing about beyond the toilet and hey, it's good to see you kind of thing. But the thing is that a little bit of that humor there in that way. But yeah. So anyway, so like it's kind of like I was thinking about something that Oprah Winfrey, and why Oprah Winfrey seemed. I'm almost for certain that she's the one about the question, if not now, when. And it's almost like the thing about her previous deals involving motion picture and movies, that way of ultimately, the thing about the plantation, or the reservation, the Native American Indian, that way of reserve reverse, Pentagon reserve reverse, or Pentagon drummer, and all that stuff. And ultimately, the thing of it is that I mean, if the Native American Indian is something about the thought that way, but the thing of it is that the book Secrets of the Temple: How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country gives the history of the U.S. $1 below the equator, ultimately leading to Latin terminology, which is predominantly identified as legal terminology of a point of origin, based upon the information that during studying to be a parallel, or what that is or is not, to even the absentee voting, or is it limited to the thought of TEA being Texas Education Agency, or Texas Educational academics are approved, or what the acronym is that way, or what the absentee voting really seems to be, of whether or not it publishers is really the only issue of like a biblical terminology of the separation between church and state, and the word version that way, um, or what intellectual duration only means, possibly maybe only in that way, of what only available information only means. I'm assuming that would automatically, well, must have been there. Yeah, guess you had to be there, kind of thing. Or the thought of like refreshing the memory and realizing that's really happening, and that been one of my points. But the thing with this is that ultimately, I'd gotten a generator, and at first, I wasn't really thinking about the thing, but here recently, beyond the sprite, I like the sprite and the color code and the design of it looks like a symmetrical, asymmetrical boomerang, yet like at the same time like a Z. But at the same time, some of the information that's being providing involving networking is giving the impression of kind of J-ish, kind of almost implying almost like the design of the eardrum itself or the seashell, and ultimately getting to what is called the tube effect. And if my memory serves me correctly, I'd heard about the tube effect before I think I had even a need for a laptop or even knowing if YouTube.com even existed yet or, what the deal is. But, all that information about the tube effect, um, predominantly, during, my thing about like 13 band graphic equalizers, um, ultimately getting to what is now like the pastel green and pastel red of like a JVC, it predominantly is really the only one I know of like that was back then in the 80s with the pastel green of ambience, normally a constant as an overflow normally that capacitors are involved with in circuits, kind of regulating a constant and direct circuit that way. But it's like once a capacitor is full, I mean, it will like allow a little bit of an overflow, um, if that at all, or depending upon other capacitors within, the circuit to maybe present the issue of providing a rating, a set standard for a specific circuit that way. But anyway, yeah. So like JVC, and the thing about the acronym with JVC is kind of like I was going through my thing, even junior varsity thing about baseball. Ultimately, like within 3 months, is like getting up into the varsity thing about baseball. But anyway, it seemed to be like the jurisdictional venue circuit. It's kind of like I was thinking about the acronym because it seemed to be like um, many factors with that acronym JVC. And like when I was like in high school and out of that, I mean, those weren't even my thoughts of the acronym. And ultimately, years later, studying, like reading as much of the Black's Law dictionary as possible. I mean, it ultimately got to whether or not if constitutional law being the Black Book as well as Black's Law dictionary suggesting that as compared to statutes annotated being the Black Book, state statutes annotated, and how true that is. In any case, but ultimately it's getting to the thing about the yin yang and Japanese thing about the two dots being black and white, or the space shuttle and NASA that way. The color code of a holy siegel, yeah. Holy siegel, basically the way was spelled with like two L's, just like 137 Washington, D.C., and Clear Lake, Texas, where NASA's at, right? Well, anyway, it's ultimately getting to all that. But anyway, like I was thinking about that because it's already going on like 23 minutes and like 5 seconds right now. But anyway, I was thinking about it because there was like two interviews I went on, and it seems to be like now all this information where I'm at with like studying. I mean, really anyone that's like really studies it, and I'm almost for sure that there's like generations, if not hundreds of years of experience. I mean, it's kind of like I can almost anticipate projected estimates in a way of like the anticipation of what only geographic manufactured geographic options only present as an analytical projection or consistent confirmation affirmation that normally economic factors geographics and maybe even climate what's the preference based upon climate or economics that way or what stationary means within categorization of whether if affordability is only the borrower's terminology of non-degree for real or the annuity side of like going beyond a grant or the Ulysses as grant thing or my thing like right now is kind of like a William okay it seemed to be like Al Gore okay and Bill Clinton William Jefferson Clinton it's like on TV it mentioned something that he is so appalled okay and like in the King James Version Bible okay there's a map and it's like ultimately getting to the Mediterranean area and the Phoenicia thing about it okay like phone ICIA huh? Yeah. So anyway, so like ultimately, it's like I was thinking about something about the military burial deterrent, and let you get Paul of like biblical time, okay, and I think he had his like circuit going through like biblical time in prison, and like Paul being 50, like in America, and other factors involving 50, or Ulysses as Grant, um, And what counterbalancing or the earth for perfected seasonal changes is if that's recommended or if it's a need as a pastel, um, or what integration and compatibility only mean that way. Um, so anyway, like Paul is like going through a circuit in biblical times in the King James Version Bible, and I think it covers the Eurodollar and factors of like even in Egypt of Pharaoh of information that leads to the history of the U.S. dollar as well as the euro dollar in a way. And like something like Oprah Winfrey is if not now then when, um, and her movie in Roots, that way of like plantation is like a color code, okay, or like state statues annotated in a way, or space exploration, or the black dot on the map with a bunch of predominantly family names, last names on the map. With a black dot on the map, or the thing about caviar beyond the front lines of the beach, right? And the Prince of Wales thing, okay. But anyway, yeah. So like or primate spawning that way, or what all that really means, in thought of beyond the front lines of the beach. Right? Anyway, I've been on two interviews as like worldwide, and now it's just now kind of like seemingly like the song "Twice This Happened" was the first time I said goodbye thing. Um, I mean now it seems to be like like a song like back in the '80s, and yeah, I'm actually trying to. I'll think about it, but it's the song "Twice This Happened" was the first time I said goodbye. I think maybe it really is the third person, and the intellectual thing of international law having fair use. Twice it happened, and really it was the third time because the information it seemed to be the front lines of the beach, right, in chronological order that way. Um, at the interview, anyone who's been to church, there's like I said real quick about the front lines of the beach, right, and seeing the two sets of footprints being 4 feet, and then there's only 2 feet and one set of footprints being the question, Lord, where were you when I need you the most? Or with the pro-life, the pro Jesus Christ anger, Lord, where were you when I need you most? Like when I was carrying you, okay? It's kind of like and now it seems to be like almost like the generator wind being the orange thing in a pastel grayscale of the Houston Astros uniform. And I'll have to actually think about it. It's just like something about the Nolan Line Express and Highway 288. And I mentioned earlier something about that, and I'm going to wait for that because of the color code of like the Coast Guard and certain factors of representing what I might see as martial law. How true it is in any case. Anyway, I'm going to hold off on that right now. But yeah. So anyway, it seemed to be like the deal about the even the Marmalade Sky thing. An Elton John song, the Marmalade Sky. Yeah, and that really was a deal. Like a Marmalade Sky, unlike any other. Yeah, real orange. I mean, tremendously orange for real. But in any case, yeah, yeah. So anyway, I was thinking about that because the wind generator is orange. Okay, if not now, then when? The thing with this is that you know where all that color code is, and when the dress code is the dress code. In any case, yeah. So like the thing with this is that um, Paul, in biblical times, went through a circuit through Rome. I mean, all the way through it, it's described, and I think it's all the factors of like the Eurodollar, Club Med, the Mediterranean, um, certain factors that even involve like importing and exporting of maritime law, ultimately getting to distinguish the difference between intellectual property as royalties of a degree level and what differences between something in my mind of non-degree being non-transferable, non-negotiable, non-transferable, and whether the only itemization would only be the accusation of liquid equity in maritime law, or what the thought is of like um, if boycott and embargo is only maritime law based upon commerce dictating what's on or offshore, or what piracy might only suggest as litigation, or what de facto really is or is not, in the way of like whether patent pending is only an FDIC claim, uh, claiming, what's protected and what not, and who has what, and who's in possession of the information after a daily standard transaction at the bank, or what degree level only means based upon experience, or what designated drivers only mean, beyond, the thought of, Pinocchio be on deck in a pitch and it's a line drive and a fielder's choice, be on the toilet. Um, and, the Mickey Mantle thing about hey, is it the Marlon Brando flying swordfish, about some factors about the thing about it, Mickey Mantle, huh? Like the thing about the chimney, and it's ultimately gotten to, the deal about the drum shop on Highway 59, um, Southwest Freeway. And Southwest, United States Supreme Court Southwest Court Reporter. I mean, it is Southwest Court Reporter of the United States Supreme Court. Predominantly, Southwestern Bell identifies, the blue thing about communications that way. Yet now, uh, it being AT&T, in how many years? It may be 20, 25 years ago. How long ago AT&T? This be in the year 2023, okay? That AT&T took over Southwestern Bell being the white and blue. And how true it is if it's a pastel or, the baby blue or the pastel blue. It presents the colors of, the Air Force One of the White House and the President of the United States. I've seen, the Air Force One, both the midnight blue of even the Harris County thing about whether you want to call it government or what's inside with the sheriff's department, or thing about the midnight blue thing. I mean, it's like, so like midnight blue. It's like it's hard to distinguish the difference between black and blue. A midnight blue thing about it, but the thing with this is that the if my the Air Force One in the White House, I mean, it's been color coded that way of like the colors, and if that's only presenting what intellectual obturation only means, of when information is being provided, and only when and where intellectual duration is only like whether it's a database administration or geographically attached, or when that's designated in the way of like color code. Seems to be like what I'm thinking about now, like British Petroleum being the pastel green, and the green thing about even the same colors of the Sprite, and what in world class and world province and world history is to like the pastel green. What a 9 hole golf courses is, and an 18 hole golf course is to the alphanumerics of 36, or 99 and 18, and what that I is, or the thing of this is that really I was thinking about the colors, because British Petroleum, I think the first time I saw it, it was just the green, the pastel green, and the green like the province, or like of a golf course, okay, or like even the Garden of Eden, yeah. So journeying through the wilderness, like on a golf course, and you know, yeah, and made its way to its platform, and beyond the tennis court, right, and the marginal spread thing about it, yeah. So anyway, um, in any case, yeah. So like um, the deal about that is it seems to be like a jurisprudence with a black back, and the canvassing thing about the book cover itself. But British Petroleum has the colors there, but yet I think the first time I saw it was just the pastel green and the green, and it has the yellow with it too, and automatically everything what's involved. It seems to be like what's really going on with SSI and supplemental security income that way. I mean, like a bunch of borrower's terminology, yet annuity, yet only factors it would only present whether or not if auditing legal media and deposition is only the fact of like whether litigation is de facto, or memory minus de facto being 35 in NASA and space exploration, or what amphibious is beyond the atmosphere, or the thing about the you know aeronautics, and being amphibious beyond maritime law, and like making a grade beyond the local area network of like a internet protocol that way, and like it's kind of like Yes is a band like in the 1980s. It on the big generator thing. It's like really like it seems to be like the thing of like experiencing having a need for a generator, and when a generator of like huge industrial um, generators, powering up and a shutdown, or an emergency, when a generator goes beyond having a need to computate its values and wattage and straight into the electrical thing, or vice versa, and what the rectification is that way or is not, or and the impedance and ambience of like normally would reflect normally a direct circuit of like 12 volt, and all that alphanumerical about the 12 being 87, and the truth and miracle God, and that annuit comptness minus transfiguration, the word of the alphanumerics 192, and the book of Thessalonians being the re-entering heaven thing of the word in the book of Thessalonians, okay, transfiguration, okay, and it's like alphanumerics 192, or like a yeah, like a Pentagon quarter, or a drummer quarter, a bicentennial quarter thing about it, and a bicentennial drummer about the alphanumeric 192, and in any case now, so like anyway, so like I was thinking about that because uh the generator's like an orange thing, and that front lines of the beach ride seemed to be the deal about the Golden Gates thing in Huntsville, exiting, the TDCJ thing. The thing about it is, I mean, if it's ultimately getting to be defining the meaning of what aggregates only mean based upon, only a degree level or the experience, or, have some real brains about what monetary domestic gross national product is, and aggregates in the way of international banking systems, or, the thought of like powers and principalities in high places, or, practical application of principle in that way of like, the meaning of value that way, or the pi square in alphanumeric and linguistics, the pi square and the exponential quotients, you know, um, distinguishable difference between uh, pi squared, normally of addition and subtraction, more so of addition of exponential values, normally in pi squared that's already identified anyway. But in that way, a practical application of a variable as compared to beyond the pi squared itself of an already known factor, other than maybe the approximation of a diameter being the radius. But as far as the pi r squared, the radius squared, I mean, you automatically know the exponent would be normally a variable is already identified and added to itself twice. And that's the addition side of the placement of like the exponent. What would normally be a variable is not a variable in that way, because it's already a known fact that it's half is the radius, okay, added to added to itself twice, okay. Anyway, so like the deal of it is, it seems like the gates of like TDCJ being the Golden Gates, and something about the Soviet Union, and how true it is about the Russian the Russia Prussia deal and like world history seem to be like the same difference between Russia and Prussia and the Soviet Union, providing whether if the P is silent or not, or what the deal is about the P in a way. Um, because I mean, it seemed to be like the golden theory, and how true it is if it's the criminal, but it seemed to be so very much about the pi r squared, and the exponential quotient of like powers of um, you know um, of multiplication, exponential powers of multiplication. It's a phenomenally huge difference. If it's like comparable to what a legend or a key or a scale would mean on the map, I mean, well, there it is, because it seemed to be like the deal about the actually what would be maybe even television in the way of what criminology or criminal law only might mean to, a military function, in the way of like whether or not if the word is ever soldier, or, an idiot's fee of not knowing, maybe just watching television or repeating, terminology on K television might only represent maybe not knowing, or, a continual accusation that litigation is in progress just by turning on the television, okay? Or what a W-2 form means beyond Philadelphia, and all that Independence Day and 200-year celebration of, maybe Fox 29 News in Philadelphia might want to, have something to say about that, about, the Benjamin Franklin deal about the 100 Club, as well, the International Electrical Electronic Engineering thing about the IEEE being, the thing about the 24, and HOA, Homeowners Association, and GMAC, like General Motors Acceptance Corporation, and promissory notes, or what the real deal is about color code of constitutional law is, or whether or not if state statutes annotated only reflect maybe a black dot on a map, or, some thought of like, caviar that hadn't even, evolved, beyond maritime law in the front lines of the beach, right? Or some accusation, hey, like where's all that primate spawning at, right? So anyway, yeah. So the thing of it is that and I mean, if it's ultimately getting to, the thought of something of that in that way, it seemed to be like where's that, like the band, yes, okay, it's got the big generator, and it's like yellow, okay. And when I first saw that British Petroleum uh, emblem, I don't know if I'd call it logo or emblem, but anyway, I don't know if I'd even call it a trademark. I mean, right now it seems to me like you gotta be kidding me. But anyway, it seemed to be like whether or not if really, if ultimately, the thing about it, the Soviet Union, all the gold and red carpet, seemed to be like, something about an experience of a memory being, I mean, predominantly, I mean, possibly the only factor of having, a memory about it. I mean, it's like really not funny, but thing of it is, without television and stuff like that, it would probably, I'm assuming, almost like virtually impossible to remember quite a bit about something about that. But anyway, and distinguishing whether or not if it's just representing the TDCJ or the touchdown, and the C of the Apple iPhone SE between the color code of like the ERISA statute, predominantly in my mind being the black thing of state statutes annotated. Yeah, I don't know if it has to be limited to state or or what the 65 alphanumerically is to the alphabet or to state or states plural being 84 or Austin Powers Bluebonnet Imperial Eagle or what that is to I can't believe it's butter and HTTP : double forward slash. The thing with this is that ultimately it seemed to be like the difference between like walking through in my mind of the golden interior, um, and several factors that seem to be like whether or not if the State of the Union address is only getting to maybe what might only be a baseball team of the Padres or what the P is to the address. Padres, huh? The address, huh? Huh. Amazingly, it's the P silent when Padres, huh? The address is the CBS, huh? Baseball, huh? Woo! The 90-degree, huh? The baseball field, huh? A field destroys, huh? Padres, huh? Wow. Is it the W2 form, huh? Is it the PG-13 rating? The Padres. I mean, is it the address is CBS or is it the State of the Union address? The Padres, huh? The address. Is it silent or is it religious or is it like really beyond the 12-foot reserve banks or the thought of a exponential quotient? But anyway, it seemed to be like the difference between like whether or not if the Kremlin is the actual side of the actual experience. Although don't be fooled by imitations. Yet at the same time, or the greatness of like a full attendance thing about what would be maybe in my mind representative of not limited to a movie. It seems to be something like something an appraisal of a resurrection. I mean, for real. Um, yeah. In any case, yeah. So like all the stuff about TDCJ. I don't even like referring to it. And the only reason why I refer to it sometimes is because the alphanumerics seem to be so very important about the Chevrolet Geoprism and the Hyundai Excel. Okay, and the thing right back to it, front page news of the Houston Chronicle. It seems to be the thing about the three pastel and the black, and then later, before they relocated whatever deals with the Univision at West Leipzig 10 and Highway 59, and later the three pastels into one white. I mean, it's like a Remo black dot drum head, okay, or the Aquarian power white dot, drum head, and what the deal is with the exponential quotients are. Um, Between the grayscale and like the Houston Astros uniform when like Nolan Ryan was on there. And I'd mentioned, I said, Nolan Ryan had more than 2,000. I was actually thinking about Nostradamus and Empire Square, but it's really more than 6,000. And back to that six thing, about quite a bit about some presidential reference between uh, the New Deal Act being of like the Roosevelt administration. Yet there's two Roosevelts from like Theodore to like Franklin, okay. And ultimately a whole bunch of stuff about six from like ABC 13 Houston to ABC 7 Los Angeles, and and anyways, I could go on forever, probably about all this stuff, and I'm trying to keep it to what I'm really trying to stay on is that ultimately is getting to what I was thinking about the thing about I mean if it's ultimately getting to what an aggregate is or is not, when and where, what boundaries and limitations only is to duration. If it's only intellectual duration of like what itemization, taxation and itemization going beyond to the expenditure beyond the executive classroom. I mean, if ultimately if it's going to get to the monetary, domestic, and gross national product of the military or practical application of principles still of, yet maybe not, or what the Stargate program only means based upon memory. I mean, if it's really only getting to the pi r squared factor and ultimately exiting through the Golden Gates of Huntsville, representative of the Kremlin, or even the Golden Arches of McDonald's, representative of, going beyond, the thought of panning for gold between Wyatt Earp and John Wayne and all that technicolor stuff, not limited to at all, but seemingly the deal about the Hopsing and all that grasshopper stuff and the Hopsing thing about something, like Fantasy Love 30, or what the deal is, in and out, the input and output of like, like sitting on the toilet, okay? And the high silver thing of the blue and purple bird of Israel being alphanumeric of 128, and all that Zion stuff about Israel and religion and Christianity that way, Zion being 1,000 years apiece, and added to the blue and purple bird being alphanumeric 128th, and being FM, 1128 here in Pearland, Texas, and all the way through Manville, all the way to Highway 288. That way, but the thing it seemed to be like the difference between a terabyte being 1,024 gigabytes and FM 1128, which is approximately, I'm assuming, I haven't actually done it, but here recently, I mean, just approximation, but I'm going to get real specific. But, like, is it like 0.58 miles or 0.59 miles from like my actual location here in Pearland, Texas? But it seems to be like the difference between the 1024 gigabytes and FM 1128, which is like Old Massey Highway or Manville Highway or FM 1128. It's a difference of 104, like taxation, annuity, and electronic that way. That's kind of like, that's kind of like when I was like sitting there looking at it geographically, I'm kind of like going, God, you got to be kidding me. But yet, with the thought of 1024 gigabytes being all, practical application of like using only two numbers like binary numbers are, yet sequencing characterization sets of four. 1024 intended 24 is 34, like, the US $1 bill. Or pronunciation being, the thought of like one being one, WUN being 58. Or the three basic simple methods of computation being addition of the symbolic representation between the C and the PTIS, on kind of above the I, called the deity on top of the pyramid of the backside of the US $1 bill, being the three first minimal requirements being alphanumerically of 58. Yet the one horizontal line representing, many factors in my mind, Texas Instruments of a calculator, a programming, yet going beyond that, likewise of Texas Instruments of calculus, getting into whether it's beyond the programming of calculus or an error, the EE will pop up, and certain factors of the 0 point E being the basic, without the point. It's like that symbolic representation that all the possible combinations of alphabetical and numerical with the minimum required being 58 thing about it, and that one line of knowing that, and then one, it seems to be like ultimately all the years of like computation of like ultimately getting to 6 point star of Israel and the Israeli flag and the blue and purple bird thing, and ultimately it's getting to the one vertical computation and the halo left side of that symbolic representation between the C and the PTIS on the US $1 seem to be the thing about calculus and quantum, going beyond the calculus of like the Japanese alphabetical structure of the computation, the formula structure itself in quantum, and that different by design. The E thing, like Star Furniture in a way, yet front page news of the Houston Chronicle with that E and identifying Soviet Union, Russia, or what the Prussia is to the front page news, with that different by design E on the front page. Likewise, during that time of like the Chevrolet GeoPrism and the Hyundai Excel. I mean, if it ultimately gets to excelling above the rest and excelling, beyond the TDCJ thing about, GeoPrism is GeoPrison, or spelt with a Z instead of an S of GeoPrison. Prism is GeoPrism because when the alphabets are reversed, M is N is M, 13 is 14, 14 is 13, all that 55 stuff about, all that colored, blue stuff in the sky thing about, the heaven thing about it, okay? But anyway, yeah, so like, so ultimately, the GeoPrism is GeoPrison. It's like the alphanumeric is 247. Yet, the chapter Winners and Losers, I mean, it seems to be like the book originated really from an experience, yes, of a baptism, June 14th, 1992. Okay, Saturday morning, okay? Not many days hence, guaranteed. Flag Day, Saturday morning, thing about Friendswood, Texas, okay? And the American religion thing about the thing, a location there, or, real close to the Deseret thing and pronunciation and spelling the street itself and the Sunset Boulevard thing. But anyway, yeah, so like, and what the sunset is to nano units in night vision, Abraham Lincoln, with the name of the street itself. I mean, is it dawn or is it sunset, or is it like, the thought of like Abraham Lincoln night vision, measuring like, luminance in nano units, measuring the density of luminance in nano units of night vision. And ultimately, it has ultimately really gotten to that. The Mormon church there on Desert, yeah. I've seen it Deseret, uh, their Sunset Boulevard, and really, I mean, ultimately, it seems to be like the thing about the Abraham Lincoln and the Lincoln Continental and the Hood Orm and the Power Squared of a rectangle, even global positioning systems and VSAT communication and technology that way. Going to a circuit, okay. Um, yes, I mean, ultimately, Sunset Boulevard and the baptism on Flag Day, June 14th, 1992, on a Saturday. I mean, if it ultimately gets to the SAT and a possible highest score of 2,400, which is normally the entrance exam of like major universities, okay? Worldwide of like major universities, the highest possible score. How true that is, being, 2,400. The thing about Nostradamus is that, narrated by Orson Welles, okay? I mean, all the information with Orson Welles narrating Nostradamus is predominantly, the same information, a practical application, even religiously, between the Eurodollar and Europe, and like Paul being a religious thing about going through a prison circuit, like even Club Med, the Eurodollar, and the thing about Egypt and the desert and the Sahara and Sarah, um, and thought of the Persian Gulf and Nostradamus, and all this information is, and the secrets of the temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country. I mean, all the information is so many practical application and integration of the and likewise, in addition, Turbulent Waters is a good book. I read that too, but it seems to be getting more along the sides of it's not really identifying military power in the way, but it seemed to be like a huge intercontinental, like the thing about, all throughout the book, the word intercontinental it's used, so much, it's like unreal. It's like, okay, already. Yet, based upon pronunciation, you've probably heard it before. Intercontinental. It's almost like the absentee with the N being 9 and the I thing in a way, but it seemed to be the alphanumerics of 212 in New York that way. Intercontinental as compared to continental. And it seems to be like the deal about, really, really using everything that's like really obviously not only thought of a normal way of like practicing uh, law, of alphanumerics and linguistics that way. Woo. In any case, yeah. So like yeah. So the thing of it is it's almost like knowing the difference between whether or not if United Nations or the General Assembly, or thought of like even Geneva, Switzerland, represents the dimensional clauses of Washington D.C. or the alphanumerics of 130 and 7, or television electronic God and the D.C. thing about whether it's an initial or an acronym, or whatever the case is between dimensional clause and direct circuit, or degree level, um, or degreed circuit that way, or what the equator is in that way, based upon whether or not if categorization is going to be thought of a standard at a degree level or not. But anyway, I'm going pretty close to getting close to an hour here right now. I'm actually talking to quite a point. My point was actually getting to the yin yang, the two dots of the HTTP calling that interview. And I'm actually trying to actually think about it, but I think it's only two, with the circle and the 90-degree right angle. And I'm not sure if it's a symmetrical, asymmetrical, but I know it's that principle anyway, whether it is or is not. Predominantly in the Houston area, the greater than sign being to the upper left would be like automatically Austin and Highway 290. Yet the two interviews that seem to be like whether or not if it's a classified ad only suggest maybe what only like the Houston Chronicle seems to be of like the biggest during the 80s of import and export in the Port of Houston, the Chevrolet Geoprism and the Hyundai Excel. And it seems to be the big deal right now about the book 6 of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, and the chapter winners and losers in that way of like the alphanumerics of that one specific thing. Not limited to, but Geoprism is Geoprison, spelled with a Z. And the reason why M is N applied to it would be Geoprism is Geoprison. Yet 109 is 110, like governor is president, okay? Or Los Angeles is president. The alphabet is 247, or you think about Robert E. Rubin. Okay, the United States Secretary of Treasury, Robert E. Rubin. Okay, the Secretary of Treasury is, yes, of scribes, okay? And my thing about the invisible programming and light scribe beyond biometrics, okay? In a way of like, even like what would be waveform in a way, yet stationary engineering of electronic, given identity of waveform that way. Or, not necessarily limited to, yet waveform in the United States Supreme Court, it suggests that sometimes the word minutes in the courtroom is normally identifying like transcript in actual court proceedings inside the actual courtroom. Yet the word minutes, and there's a book Nimitz class, and all this information seems to be so. I mean, the book Nimitz class, I mean, it even presents the same information and content that seems pertinent of like Nostradamus, Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, uh, turbulent waters, and the Nimitz class, and even the Houston Astros field, Minute Maid field, the minutes, the Nimitz, and how it's spelt and pronounced, and all that, and all that alphanumeric stuff between the Nimitz class being a 3 nuclear powered submarines and a 3 powered nuclear powered aircraft. I mean, it's getting to the 6th thing of what I've been really seeing, like the New Deal Act and what that is with Roosevelt being 131, or the power squared being added to itself twice, being 262, or a telepathic dollar, or a bicentennial way of a 200-year celebration of a telepathic $quarter. That way of like both of Theodore and Roosevelt, that way of being 6 presidential terms, and it 6 seems to be, I mean, the big deal about the alphanumerics of like de facto or heart, excuse me. Yeah, so yeah, 52 like VPN or via presidential, via plenipotentiary network or vice president network, or all that heart pearl stuff, and what that is to entertainment, a drummer, yeah, or like even escrow, heart god, and all that stuff about building and construction and building, that way of like even the OSHA, ultimately getting to the operator, and I mean occupational safety health administration, or is it the absentee thing about OSHA of the ocean, and the safety, or the Ecclesiastes, the absentee thing about whether or not if that's going to be the real deal about the OSHA thing, the safety. Um, in any case, yeah, it's already going on 57 minutes. I'm getting to where I need to take a break anyway. But I was wanting to mention that real quick because it seemed to be like the issue with like generators right now in the color code of the grayscale being the set standards of density of luminous as a standard, normally identifying the standard in grayscale and in the Houston Astros. And once again, I'm gonna have to think about it because I'm thinking about the 2 interviews that seem to be something in the song. Twice this happened. It was the first time I said goodbye, and I'm actually trying to remember who sings that. I don't want to say it yet. I'm wanting to say Black Crows. I'm not sure if it is. I'm actually going to have to think about it. Twice this happened was the first time. But as far as like all the thing about code, uh, like black code of like state statutes annotated, and the ERISA statute as compared to the IRA, and like the Apple iPhone SE, the difference between ERISA and like the IRA, or the difference between the Internal Revenue Service and United States Treasury to US dollar as compared to maybe why Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency, or what the deal is in space exploration, like NASA, involving architecture platform embedding encryption, and what that is, and Stargate deal. So anyway, like I've been thinking about quite a bit really about that, and it seemed to be the generator because like the band, yes, and big generators, like one of the albums I really like focus on, and the 90125 I think is with the rhythm of love thing about it, and yeah, and if it's ultimately getting to the Vantage Love 30 thing about the rhythm of love, or what an algorithm is, and absolute values that way, going beyond calculus into quantum, seems to be like where it's at like right now, and it seems to be so very much about it. I mean, I think about this stuff, I mean, phenomenally, like, I mean, all the time. I'm actually trying to like get, my thought of like a commercial venue building, and actually have my living quarter that's not going to be a contesting factor of television programming, of whether there's like litigation in progress, or the memory issue of like whether if like only a W-2 form is only the thought of like you know in the Houston area, like viewing and listening area thing about all that stuff, where the litigation is going to be whether or not if it's the .com compromise issue, or what boycott and embargo would only maybe present as whether commerce dictates what's on or offshore based upon internet protocol of like a local area network. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So like it's already going on like an hour and God, 13 seconds. Oh yeah. So I want to stop right there because yeah. So like and in that way, great. There it is. Yeah.